Another beautiful Tuesday, Monday, not Tuesday. It is Monday morning, my friend. How are you doing? James Okumi is my name. I hope you had a great weekend. And you are looking forward to Motivation Monday. Last week, we talked about purpose. And the big question is, what is purpose and how do I discover my purpose? And we had a very interesting conversation concerning that. But then the question begs is, so what? Now that I know my purpose, how do I embrace it? How do I move forward with it? What are some of the things I need to do to be able to embrace this purpose and actually actualize it? Because it's one thing to know, it's another thing to actually do it. And the way we live life today, the way life has been structured today, how do I embrace that purpose? Especially if it is something the exact opposite of what I'm doing. You know, we have jobs, we have businesses, because we need to make some moolah and pay the bills. So, okay, my purpose is something totally different. How do I even embrace it? Who will pay the bills? Where do I begin? That's the conversation we want to have today as we pick up from where we left off last week. And I'm asking you, do you know anybody who knows their purpose and they have embraced it? Share their story with me on 20316, WhatsApp 0786316316. I already have our international guests responding and waiting for today's conversation. You have Roy in China here who's saying, great talk, I'm really learning a lot. Tunaanza sasa hivi. I also have Phyllis Ndongo from Saudi Arabia saying she doesn't know her purpose, but she needs to know it and embrace it. She's waiting to learn today. Fanwell, you have a question. We'll get to that shortly. And then Shiro, also, you said last week you really enjoyed the conversation, and today we take it a notch higher. So today it's all about embracing your purpose. Once you've discovered it, how do you embrace it? How do you begin to live it out? That's coming up shortly. Two amazing guests will be joining me in studio today via Zoom. I will be introducing them to you in the next short while. In the meantime, if you have any questions about embracing your purpose, share that with me via SMS 20316 SMS line, WhatsApp number 0786 316 316. Don't wait until it's too late. Don't wait until 15 minutes before we get to Satatu. That's when you're sending me the questions. We might not be able to answer them at that time. If you have a question, please send it in now so that we can get to it quick, fast, and in a hurry, as my friend Odipo G likes saying. In case you're just joining us, it is Monday morning. Every Monday we have Motivation Monday on Jam 316, both on Family TV and on Family Radio 316. Last week, kicked off a conversation talking about purpose and just understanding what purpose is and how to, begin to understand what your purpose could be. Today we take it a notch higher and we talk about how to embrace that purpose and make it the reality that you live in. I've got two wonderful guests joining me in studio via Zoom. Esther Mwaneki is a life coach. Esther, how are you doing today?
I'm all right. It's nice to see you, James.
Karibu sana. Good to have you on the show today.
Thank you.
Also, we have
morning, everyone.
Also, we have Samson Mungadia. Samson Mungadia is a speaker, an author, and a mentor. Samson, how are you doing?
I'm very fine, Sir James. It's a pleasure to be in this morning for this show.
Asanteni sana. I feel like today this show is very, very biblical. The host is James, the brother of Jesus, and then we have Samson and Esther, the queen. Oh, my goodness.
Tell you, a full house.
Okay, let's begin by defining purpose again. I know we had defined purpose with the guest we had last week, but for the sake of somebody who's joining us and they didn't listen to last week's show, when we talk about purpose, what exactly are we talking about?
I go fast, and I think it's for me it's aligning with why God creates an individual. Mm-hmm. So it goes back to that analogy that when you create anything, you create it with a purpose in mind.
Yeah.
And so I think a human's journey is about connecting with what God created them to do. And it's almost like innately we know when we've connected with it. So I think purpose is that inner thing that God creates the person, and almost like it's called us on a continuous basis.
Okay. Samson, do you agree with that or you have another definition?
Yeah, I totally agree with it. Mm-hmm. Just to add, it's the very reason why you exist. The reason as to why you came to be. That's the purpose. So it's all about the why, and then now the rest is just you should just surround the rest around the why. So purpose is why you are here, or what are you doing here? Why are you around?
Great. Somebody's asking, can you have more than one purpose? Because they are feeling like they have more than one purpose.
I really don't think so. we have one purpose, only that you can have so many ways of expressing your purpose or serving your purpose. But really, in life, purpose just it's one. Your why is one, but the way of expressing it could be just through different channels, kind of.
Okay. Some people have of the school of thought that this purpose thing is so overrated. You know, I mean, as long as you're living life, you know, you're helping your neighbor and loving them as you love yourself, you love God. What's the big deal about purpose anyway?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. And it's a question that I ask often because I wonder if my grandmother knew anything about purpose. Yet I think she's living a full life.
Yes.
I think it's a word, but if you set aside the word and you focus on what it's about, the why, as Samson talks about, and that why doesn't have to be called purpose, but it is a why. So even when I talk up to my grandmother, what I hear her say is she had a big why. It may have been about feeding her family, ensuring that her children grow up to healthy, useful people in society. That was a purpose. I think in a lot of modern conversations, it's focused on that word purpose. And so people feel threatened. They feel like some people know purpose, some people never know purpose. But ultimately, if you take away the purpose word, because I think sometimes it's just a threatening word, and just keep at the center of why do I live? Why do I do what I do? And if you have clarity over that, then you have a sense of purpose. And I like what Samson talked about earlier in terms of the many ways to that purpose, that it remains the same thing. But and I like when I put it, I like it says that life is lived forward but understood backwards. A lot of people do not connect the dots until way later in life, but to find a sense living out your purpose. So in that way, I feel we all in one form or another, if you're searching, have some sort of purpose. It's just the pressure sometimes incapacitates them.
Okay. Now, in talking about embracing your purpose, many times when I hear a good number of purpose coaches, when they're speaking, they usually say how I discovered my purpose and then I left my job and then I connected with my purpose. And I keep wondering, does it mean all of us who have jobs have no purpose? You know, that when we connect with our purpose, we have to leave our jobs. And interestingly, most of the purpose coaches I know are bankers.
Good point, actually. It's very true.
I've never... Is it that we discover it is in that moment when you're in the banking hall that you discover, surrounded with all this money, if this was mine, what would I do with it? I know my purpose. And then I leave my job and then So I'm just wondering, do I have to leave my job to embrace my purpose?
I really don't think it has to be like that. It's only that most of the times, not the formal employment that you're in, a majority of the people you find they go there just maybe for the sake of the job security or money or something like that. So it could be that you have to leave the job, but then your purpose also could be aligned to the job that you're doing. So it's all about knowing the why, because what I believe is you can have the job and still live your why. You can use the job, the job can just be a channel to support the why, because remember, the reason for existence is the purpose, but then the job is just a means or a vehicle to assist or to enable you to express that purpose. So you don't have to leave the job, but in case if it doesn't marry with your purpose, then it's okay, you can leave.
Can you give me a practical example with that? You know, where somebody has a purpose, but it's not aligned to their job, but they're using their job to finance their purpose. Give me a practical example.
A practical example would be your purpose, your passion for, let's say for the street children. And you feel like your purpose is just to serve humanity by assisting the less privileged. Like, this is the why. You know, the why you exist just to serve humanity.
Yeah.
And then you're there working within a banking sector, like we're saying in a bank kind of a setup. Then you can work in the bank, get the money, and then maybe finance a foundation or something like that. So it's just the job becomes a means to supporting your purpose.
Okay.
Yes.
Keep going.
I think there's an element of our current job settings don't facilitate purpose conversations.
Very true.
And that's why many people feel the need to leave to find their purpose. I'm one of those who left. So I worked as an accountant.
Oh, you're not in a bank? You are still around money.
I was actually even not in a bank. So I think what we're saying about banking is true.
Yes.
I worked with PwC for about 6 years. I worked in UK for 3 years. I worked in a bank for 2 years. But for me, the thing I never got a chance to was to reflect in each of those steps. Why am I here?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what makes many people step out of employment. With hindsight, I was actually in purpose in each of those institutions. But I think we've built our workplaces with constant conversations. I was having a conversation with a bank recently. And one of the things I kept telling them was, in this decade, and I think the one thing that COVID has released us from,
Mm-hmm.
and hopefully we don't go backwards too, is sort of a heavy focus on capital that takes away the humanness of human beings.
Yeah.
And I think that what happens in a lot of employment spaces, we are so focused on day to day, but that we don't end up having conversations of why are we day to day. And I think the most purposeful institutions are actually banks. I was working as a head of risk, and I remember one day seeing a very old woman walking into the bank, and she deposited her money with us. And for me that day, I connected with why I was in that bank.
Okay.
It was to ensure that that woman's money reproduces and it is safe.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not the conversations we have in banks. The conversations we have in banks are about interest, getting more money.
Yes.
And so I think the problem is not necessarily that people can't get purpose within employment. It's that our current setting of work is so focused on external goals that we forget it's human beings who are doing those things.
I'll be very interested to know how you found your purpose and how you connected with it. We'll talk about that in a bit. It's about 8:15. We are talking about embracing your purpose. Samson and Esther and James in studio with us today, my friend. It's a biblical show. Questions 20316, WhatsApp 0786 316 316. Let us know what you're thinking, and we are roping you in to be part of this conversation. Motivation Monday, embracing your purpose. We are hanging out with Esther, the Queen. She's a life coach, and Samson, the strong man. He is a speaker, author, and mentor. And the host is James, the brother of Jesus. We are talking about embracing your purpose. If you have any questions, you can send them in on 20316, WhatsApp on 0786 316 316. So I'm just curious for the both of you. Maybe I can begin with Samson.
Yes.
How did you find your purpose, and how did you embrace it? Because I think sometimes we learn better when we hear other people's stories and it begins to connect the dots. How was it like for you?
So I think I will just take you back a bit and just say that purpose is very instinctive. You know, when I say instinctive, I always tell people the basic way God communicates to his creation is through instinct.
Okay.
So, yeah. So if everybody has an idea, or just instinctively they know that this is what I should be doing in life, and this is where I should be. But of course, because of varied reasons and various just maybe the environment and how we are brought up and everything else, it discourages us or either shapes us otherwise. So instinctively, everybody knows what their purpose is. It's just a normal, natural alignment by nature.
Okay.
So for my case, yeah. So for my case, I think it's quite also not, I wouldn't say accidental, because somehow nature and been aligning it, because across life, all the major places I've just found myself in a position of, just influencing people right from high school, even before high school, in positions of leadership, getting to campus, getting to do whatever you're doing. But anyhow, I used to find myself in a place whereby I'm just somewhere talking to people, because basically that's what I do today a lot. It's just speaking. So naturally, there was somehow I was inclined towards finding myself in a position of leadership, in a place whereby I'm going to be speaking to people. But back then, I didn't know it has anything to do with my life or whatever I do. But of course, with time, I came now to realization that my purpose is just to inspire people, to inspire generation. That's what I like telling people, to inspire people to live their dreams, because I realize many people are just dormant somewhere. They're just stuck in life. So, and they just need maybe a gist of once to move out of their comfort zone. So it's quite a process. I would say it's accidental, but it's a process that comes instinctively. If you learn to listen to your instincts, somewhere you get direction of a sense of purpose.
Okay. Esther, what about you? Once you had some very nice jobs. Why did you leave your job to embrace your purpose?
So I'm trying to figure out a way to summarize that. But for me, in terms of what I consider to be my purpose, it's that I'm called to build. I build people, I build institutions.
I feel you.
And, sorry?
I feel you on that one, build.
Yes. And it's something that has unfolded over time. So, like Samson, if I look at my background, I've been a leader for a good chunk of my life. I'm an introvert by nature, but somehow I always stepped into the spaces of leadership. One of the bigger ones was in high school, actually. I was the school captain of my school. But I was those people who would lead and I would step back, which is my preference, because I prefer to lead from behind. And when I finished high school, I joined campus. I did accounting. My father is an accountant, and this thing about accounting and just it being a good career had been already planted in my head. And I finished campus, got a good job, and I was doing really well, actually, in the organization. I was sent on secondment to UK for 2 years. But I actually didn't finish my 2 years. I did 1.5 years. And for some reason, that process of stepping away, and I think it's the way God works. It's what he tells Abraham, leave and go. And through that process, you hear more. So for me, those 2 years, I had a lot more questions than I had answers. And I kept asking God, what's the difference between this continent that's beautiful, has systems, has structures, and the one that I left at home that I love, but which every time I go home, I'm fighting with traffic, I'm fighting with roundabouts, and I'd come home every 3 months. But for me, the question had been settled of, we can do better. And so, but by the time I came back, I left PwC, I joined the bank, but the voice had already started its work, and I wanted to, and the thing that God had revealed for me was our gap was around leadership, that we need to be able to have leaders who serve the country. But because of historical issues, we have more of leaders who serve themselves and their own interest. And so the journey started to be around what would it take for us to raise leaders who make a difference within the country. The other gap that I kept seeing was, for me, though, I was privileged enough that my first employer was very intentional in terms of training, mentoring, coaching. And so by the time I was joining the bank in my 8th year post-campus, there was such a difference between me and many of my peers, but even just generally, I could lead with ease. And I started to see how organizations don't invest as much as my employer had in terms of training, coaching, and mentoring. And we spent a lot of time talking about half-baked graduates, but the reality is there's nowhere in the world where there's a full-baked graduate. The whole world is working towards that through intentional training, coaching, and mentoring. And so stepped out of the bank, started a mentoring program there, but eventually stepped out and started an institution whose job is to work with the youth to activate their purpose. And for me, when I look back, it looks like I discovered or encountered my purpose. But when I look back, I see even in PwC, I used to do a lot of training. I was part of the learning and education team, an accountant who loved teaching. My mom is a teacher, my family is a teacher.
It's in the blood.
And I think it goes back to what Samson was saying. If you look back, you see that it's not that one thing happens, it's that God takes you through a journey that connects those things.
I think one of the big questions for a lot of people, those people who have an idea or who know what their purpose is how do I get into it? Because there's a system by which we do life. You know, we get jobs, we earn a living, we pay our bills. Or you start like a business, you make some money, you pay your bills. That's how we do life. And so I think the big question for a lot of people is, how do I connect? Because I still need to pay my bills, and I still need to give time to the work that I'm doing, the employment or the business. So between the money and the time, how do I begin to embrace the purpose? Because it seems like there is no money for it, there's no time for it. What do you do, Samson?
One, I think it's really a situation that has caught many people. But then again, I also want to remind them that if you're truly in your purpose and serving your purpose, then also it comes automatically that somehow you will find a way of funding your life, because your purpose actually should drive your entire life. But then there is that gap in between transitioning either from employment, because I also did the same. I was in a job setup, I was in a finance sector, also in insurance. But with a basic, I'm a trained teacher, that's my background again. But then I believe if you align your purpose, your life along your purpose, then it is going to address the issues of how do I sustain my life. But till then, again, there is an element of fear in between. Because what is holding people in those jobs that were saying that are unfulfilling, they are not satisfying, is just fear. You know, what happens if I don't do this? So, but again, it comes to a point where you have to choose either to live with your fear. I mean, you live within your fear now. That is, you satisfy your current fears by holding on that job, and then regret later not living your purpose, or jump the ship. Of course, risk at the moment, but then enjoy and live a life that will be fulfilled at the end of the day, looking back and saying, okay, it wasn't really easy, but then it was a good decision that I made to cross to this edge. So either way, you either choose to enjoy now, regret later, or just jump the things, have inconveniences for now, for the time being, but then enjoy later knowing that you did the best that you could do. But what I will tell you is, if you truly identify your purpose, one or the other, it will also serve to enhance your life. It just doesn't obstruct you in any way.
Okay. Samson, you've brought about the issue of fear. We'll talk about that in a bit. Maybe you can give us a roadmap of how to overcome that fear and how to begin to make that transition as you embrace your purpose. It's 28 after 8. We're talking about embracing your purpose on Motivation Monday. If you have any questions for us, 20316 is the SMS line. WhatsApp number 0786 316 316. Motivation Monday, it is all about embracing your purpose. Now that you know it, how do you embrace it? How does it become a part of your everyday existence? In studio with us today via Zoom, we have Esther Moneki, who's a life coach, and Samson Mungathia, who's a speaker, author, and mentor. Some of the comments coming through. Kiprotich Caleb, all the way from KCA University, Nairobi. You say purpose reminds us of our responsibility. Our purpose enables us to go on. We are created for a purpose, but it doesn't mean we stop doing our daily routine, for it is by faith that we get to know who we are and what we are meant to do. Moving from one job to another is not finding purpose, but looking for passion where someone feels complete and satisfied. How do you know that this is your purpose? That's a question a lot of people are asking, which is why we did the show we did last week. Sam is saying, I'm all about purpose, and I believe that unless we are walking in our purpose, the fulfillment and contentment that we are all seeking for is going to be elusive. Thank you for that. Omboy Nakuru, you say you have no idea what your purpose is. Another comment here, you say you're not very clear on what your purpose is yet. I hope that these conversations are helping you to begin to get in the right direction. So back to the conversation. Esther, I'll throw this one back to you, because Samson earlier on mentioned fear, and a lot of people are held captive by fear because we have this routine of life that we are used to. I go to the office, I host you guys in my show every morning, I get a salary at the end of the month, I know what to expect. Now, if I'm jumping onto something else, especially if my purpose, I feel like my purpose is not aligned to the work that I'm doing and I need to give it time, you know, there's fear that if I jump out, hey, nani atalipa rent? Watu wa Kanjo watakuja wakate maji. Watu wa Pawa watakuja wakate stima. Watoto watafukuzwa shule. So, what do I do?
I think those are good concerns.
Yeah,
I think those are very good concerns to have. I mentioned that I lead an institution called LAPID, and one of the themes that we're working with this year is reimagining the possible. And that conversation is helping us to go back to asking, what are the things we've normalized that's not necessarily useful to us, and how do we reimagine the possible?
Okay.
My sense is, and I liked what your last speaker said, or the last commentator said, that ultimately purpose is about responsibility.
Yes.
The thing that we need to be able to do as a society is to take that conversations to our workplaces. A lot of workplaces have a stronger purpose than even being outside those workplaces. What we need to be able to do is spend more time asking, why does this institution exist? And that's a challenge, especially to business owners and business leaders. We have to propel that conversations within our organizations.
Yes.
There's no organization that doesn't have a purpose. And when we rob organizational purpose, we rob individuals their purpose. And so reimagining the possible is about us going back and asking, why does this bank exist? Why does Family FM exist? Why does LAPID exist? Why does each institution exist? Because if we have that conversation, one of the things that we've been talking about is the current state that we are in is built around it's an element of the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah.
So during the Industrial Revolution, there was a focus on capital and less on other factors of production, and human beings being considered as production. There's an argument around that. But if we go back, if you look at the current times, and I think that's what COVID did, many people who were unemployed last year, had no money, And the conversations I've been hearing a lot of people say is, I realized I want to do more than just go to work and tick boxes. And so the first thing I'd highlight is, as business leaders, we have to figure out what's the purpose of our institutions. Because if we don't do that, we rob individuals of their purpose. And that conversation is about fear in businesses and in individuals. The reason organizations don't define their purpose is we have fear of poverty that's entrenched.
Yes.
And the fear of poverty has a way of robbing from people. It's the story of entering the promised land. Like Joshua, Caleb, and 12 and 10 others entered the promised land, but 2 men saw the promises of God, 10 men saw the giants. And that's what fear does. Fear ensures that all of us only see the giants. We don't see the God in us.
Yeah.
The God that will enable us to be able to take that promise. And that's not to say there is no conversation that you won't pay a price. I can tell you, for me, the last 6 years, I have paid the heaviest price for the choices that I have made. But I think that's the thing about every choice. Saying you pay a price.
Yeah.
Staying in a place of no purpose. And for me, I'm very clear that many institutions have a sense of purpose. We just need to have those conversations. And not just for the institutions, but for the people that we work for. Because purpose is ultimately about our responsibility to society. For you, James, the reason you're seated there at 6 o'clock is your responsibility to your family, yes. But more importantly, your responsibility to society. The conversations that you're propelling every morning are more so about what the pace that you set in the day for people. And that conversation is important for you and for the team around you.
Yeah.
And so ensuring that our businesses constantly have conversations of not just the money we're making, but what difference are we making in society? Because when we do that, we activate people's. And that means we say fear is a reality, it's here. But bigger than the fear is the God that's inside of us. That calls us to do greater things and to ask, why does my business exist? And what's my role in that business? I always say that I think the thing that colonialism stole from us the most is purpose.
Wow.
It's because when I talk to my grandmother, as much as she doesn't talk about purpose, she had such a strong sense of purpose. She says she used to be at 5 a.m. in the chamber because at midday, the sun was going to be very strong. And the reason she was there is because she needed to make sure that she has quality tea so that she sells it and feeds her family. When I talk to many men, they had a strong sense of purpose of protecting their society, protecting their communities. We went into a situation where people have to have a slave master standing in front of you to work.
Yes.
And that's the place we rob purpose. And less about us and my gifts and me serving society, me serving my family, and more about a human being standing in front of me with a stick to look at what I'm doing. And that's the place we rob purpose. And so reimagining the possible is asking, how do we take ourselves back to where we've come from? Where we had a strong sense of purpose, not a directed sense of purpose that meant about I work because of money, I work because somebody's supervising me, but because you work wherever, whether you're employed or not, you work for yourself. I think the bigger fear is not poverty. The bigger fear is for us to be able to take ourselves back and stand and say, in every environment, bank, schools, what's the purpose here?
You've gone deep on us, eh? Just like
I'm Queen Esther after all.
But I love what you're saying. I want to bring this to you, Samson, because the reality on the ground is this. At the end of the day, if you ask a lot of people why they go to work, they will tell you because they need money. You know, and so money has become the purpose as to why we do what we do, so much so that if I can get to the end via any shortcut, I'll do it. That's why corruption is on the rise in the country today. You know, just like what Esther is saying, we are no longer thinking about how can I serve humanity. We are always thinking about how can I make more money. If I can cut corners here and make money, that's why we are always looking for better paying jobs. We are never looking for jobs in line with what we think we are supposed to do. No, we are always looking for better paying jobs. The question then is, how do we change this narrative? Because it's the same narrative we are feeding to our children.
Well, I think I want to pick it up from, I like the examples that Esther is giving about her grandparents.
Yes.
And that's why they started by saying that purpose is instinctive. It's just something that is innate inside us.
Mm-hmm.
But then, like she is saying again, I think our education system, maybe what is an extension of colonialism again, is that it has taught us, or it has programmed us not to follow our instinct, but our intellect.
Mm.
Now, the danger with this is the intellect has its own shortcomings,
Mm-hmm.
in that it inhibits our instinct. That's, the very power that God gave man, because the power that God gave man over other animals is the power to think or to use the brain.
Yeah.
But then we happen to use it against ourselves or against our own future, the what God created us for. So coming to this again, how do we change this conversation to move from, I want a better paying job, I want this, from being materialistic, because that's what I say, because we're driven by material gains. I want money to buy a house, to buy a big car, so that I can be known in the neighborhood, and all these other things. Yeah. That's what is driving people now. But then I normally ask people, what happens if you climb that ladder, the career ladder, or whatever, you go to the apex only to find that you're in the wrong place, because the people have done it. They're living life, they have the money, but then they are disoriented again, because it comes back to what you're witnessing today. We are having people who have maybe materialistic, they're very well, but then they are the depression, they are suffering. Yeah. From so many conditions, because there is inharmony or disharmony between what they are supposed to be doing and who they are at the core, and what they are doing out there because of money or anything else that is motivating them.
Okay.
So James, it just starts with me and you.
Okay.
Knowing your purpose, living your purpose, and then letting others know that it is possible you can live for these values or this very thing that were created to live for, because that's the essence of purpose. Once again, if we exemplify our purpose well and make it more visual and visible to the young generation or to the people who are looking up to us, then again, it becomes very easy to influence them also to pursue their purpose, because they will learn by observation.
Yeah.
Because that's the biggest thing, because even the hole that we've found ourselves in terms of corruption and everything, is just about observation. I came in, I found the guys ahead of me are looting, so why don't I loot also? So it's a succession kind of thinking. So we have to change the narrative from us, who we understand, let's live the purpose, and then let's pick it from there. It's a long journey, but then I believe it can be done.
Okay. Shortly, when we revert to the conversation, I'll probably ask you guys to give us what are some key questions we can begin to ask ourselves, so that we can begin to embrace and align ourselves with the purposes of God of our lives. Because I find if you ask the right questions, then you get the right answers. It is through questions that we get insight and we get revelation, and we are able to progress to the next level. So what are some key questions I need to ask myself as an individual that can help me begin to fine-tune my purpose and begin to help me embrace it and align to it? It's Motivation Monday. We are talking about embracing your purpose. Samson Mungathia, speaker, author, and mentor, and also Esther Mwaneki, who's a life coach. They're helping us to gain a deeper understanding of how we can begin to embrace our purpose. I'm still having comments coming in. Caroline Auma, you say you know your purpose, but you haven't embraced it for so many reasons. Sometimes this puts you in a very bad mood. Paul Esana, don't be in a bad mood, my friend. Let's figure out how you can begin to work out your purpose. This one from Wambo, he says, I worked in a corporate job in insurance and rose to the highest level by age 31, and I was just so depressed. I resigned without knowing where I was going. In the quiet and uncertainty, I discovered my God-given purpose, which is to help teenagers and young adults. Although it doesn't come with the big money and perks, I'm fulfilled and happiest, and I'm able to balance work, love, play, doing what I love, and also having time for myself and for my family. Wow, boy, good for you, my friend. Thank you for sharing that with us. Otieno, always a blessing to hear from you. You say, as far as purpose goes, I don't think we can get away from Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That is what I believe. We see ruling the day in people's daily activities. This narrative cannot be changed. It can only be met depending on where someone is in the needs pyramid. It determines how they will act. For example, a hungry, insecure person will not be able to think, what is my purpose? They are compelled to think, where can I get today's food and safety? We need to see things practically as they are to address people's lives meaningfully. What are your comments towards that comment by Otieno? Esther, what do you think?
Well, I hear what he's saying and I understand where he's coming from. I think a lot of purpose evangelists, sometimes we create a perception that we are entering into a place where people don't exist.
Yeah.
And I think for me, that's why the biggest thing I would love for
we've lost
to hear his purpose is not necessarily extreme life. It's that his purpose, because God didn't create Otieno in a place where he doesn't have people. God had a plan of Otieno. And so in his current environment, where he works, in whatever environment, it's for him to be able to ask, if I was fully present in this place, how would I serve humanity? And sometimes the answer is as simple as, how do I serve my boss?
Yeah.
And ensure that my boss is then able to do 1, 2, 3. And I like what Samson said around how we are modeling this to our youth. The reason we work heavily with our youth is ultimately we either model for them to live purposeful lives or we model for them to live greedy life. And that choice is made whether we know it or not. It's constantly being made by the conversations you have on TV, the conversations that we have on social media. And we have a responsibility to ensure that our children live lives that are purposeful.
Okay.
And that's not to say they have to leave employment. And I want to just make sure that that's clear.
Yeah.
I think it's to say that in every environment, there is a purpose. And if there isn't, that place needs to be locked down because it most likely is an illegal space.
Yes.
But every legal space has a purpose. The thing we haven't done is we haven't spent enough time exploring what's the purpose of this place and what's my role in it. Because if we do that, then we report to work with excellence, and we know we are not there because of money, we're there to serve communities.
Very true.
And once we've done that, then the possibility starts to increase because it's less about day-to-day survival, which is what I think ultimately many of us want to do when you're talking about Maslow's. I get the needs. I get that people shouldn't sleep hungry. But I also get that most of our institutions have the capacity to live purposefully. But we have to have the courage to reimagine the possible. Because I think the thing that 2020 did is it disrupted the world.
Yes.
And I see us trying to go back to what we call normal. But I hope that we have the courage to be able to say some of our normal was abnormal.
Very true.
A lot of our normal was actually abnormal.
Yeah.
I mean, if you see a lot of organizations, now people work from home and they work from home for several hours, several days, and without traffic and have balance and it's working. And I know there are some cases that's not working. But I think I'm using that example to say the possibilities are endless.
Okay, I think my producer...
If we were disrupted...
My producer is having some audio leaking in from somewhere. If he can look into it, I think that would be beneficial to us. Yes, keep going.
If we had the courage to be able to say, we don't need to go to work, we can work from home and still deliver. What if we had the courage now to be able to ask, can we reimagine work? So that it's less about slavery.
Yeah.
Because the thing about working just for money, it's slavery.
Yeah.
There's a quote that has been making rounds on social media that did we give up hunting and gathering for us to pay just rent?
Wow.
And that's an important question we need to ask. That we said we've given up hunting and gathering and became more developed.
Yeah.
But to pay rent, bare minimum, is that what we gave up all that for? And one of the things that I've seen that has happened this year that has been, I think, a big win, and I know it still doesn't look like it, is a lot of people even going back to their rural communities. And they're asking, how do I serve my rural communities? How do I look after our farm? And what that is us having conversations that are higher than survival. And that's, I think, the possibilities that the disruption of 2020 created. But it takes a lot of courage for us to sit with that discomfort and ask, what else can we do that's useful for us and for the next generations?
Okay. Samson, as we wrap up, because we are almost out of time, I think Esther has already asked some key questions we need to ask ourselves. What other questions do I need to ask myself that can help me align myself with my purpose and embrace it?
I think one of the very, just talk two questions, I mean, two separate kind of viewing it.
Yeah.
And one of the very basic questions I think every individual needs to ask is, why am I here?
Mm-hmm.
Or rather, why? What makes me exist? What excites me? What keeps me alive? You know, other than paying the bills and doing the core mandatory things of life like school fees and doing all the basic things, why am I here?
Yeah.
Then the next question should be, what can I do to improve the quality of life? Now, when I say quality of life, is not you as a person, but the quality of life generally.
Yeah.
That is because purpose, again, is not about you as a person. It will serve you, yes, but then again, it has also to impact other people. So it's a question of what can I do? Then I think also we need to ask ourselves, or the biggest question that we should be asking yourself is, in the absence of the bills and everything else, what should I be doing?
Yes.
You know, purpose is that thing that you will be doing, assuming you have already had all the things met, the hierarchy, whatever, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like one of our viewers has said. If you have everything sorted out at the basic level, what do I do? Yes, I've amassed the wealth, I've gotten the money, I've done all this. So at the end of the day, what am I about? What can I do without having to bother about the normal basic things about life? Then the other part of the question I'm saying, the way to view it is on dealing with fear again. Because I think the fear, Esther mentioned about it, fear is holding us a lot.
Yeah.
And for me, the greatest fear that is holding people not to live their purpose is the fear of what if. You know, every time, you know, you want to do this thing that has to do with your purpose, but then you ask yourself, what if?
Yes.
You know, what if it doesn't work?
Yes.
What if I can't pay bills? What if? So the antidote to that is to ask the question in a positive way. What if I does it and then I succeeded in impact life? So at the end of the day, Sir James, it's all about self-searching. And like I said, purpose is a continuous process.
Yeah.
And manifestation is in different ways. So let's also not look at it, because I think it's a way that we, the people who are dealing with it, have just also packaged it to look like for you to live your purpose, you have to separate it from your daily life.
Yeah.
That's your job, your business, and everything else. But that's not the case. Purpose is part of life.
Yeah.
And it can be manifested in various ways. So it's not a substitute for the job. It's not a substitute for the business. And it's not a substitute for the basic way of living. It's a way, how do you live a life of impact and satisfaction while still doing that very thing that we're doing? So in as far as we talk about living the jobs and everything else, I think purpose has a sense of direction and future life, and nothing to do with the payment of the bills and all these other things that have to do with the material and power that comes with the jobs and everything else.
Okay. Wow. Thank you so much, Samson and Esther, for that conversation today. I believe somebody has had some light bulb moments. You know, that whole conversation about work and the purpose of work and why am I here, Esther, that is one conversation I would be very interested to explore. You never know. We may go in that direction in the coming weeks. But thank you so much for your time today. Well, I'm out of time for Jam 316 Motivation Monday this morning. Embracing your purpose, my friend. Begin. As somebody once told me, you know, you dream big, but you begin small, and make sure you begin today. Just begin something today. You know, many times we are afraid to start because we want to begin huge. No, just begin the littlest form of fulfilling that purpose that you can get into that
For
today.
this and more of our shows, log on to www.familymediaonline.com to enjoy a wide variety of programs, from current affairs to testimonials and features, pastoral and inspirational shows, kids entertainment, and so much more. Also stream live on www.familymedia.tv.